Okay, let me call our meeting to order and welcome everyone to our Select Board meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. The time is 6:30 p.m. And as is our custom, if I could invite everyone here in the room to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a couple of items out of the gate, and then we have four public hearings, show cause hearings tonight on liquor violations. And we have a liquor transfer application. And we're going to discuss a couple of other items before the evening is out. So a pretty full agenda. We'll see how the evening goes. So first out of the gate, we want to talk about traffic concerns that were registered on North Billerica Road. I believe there was a speed analysis done and maybe some feedback from looks like the town engineer or staff, so if you want to come up, sir, and help us out with that. And Mr. Kelly, I know you've had some communication from at least one resident, maybe more, that sort of was the genesis of some of this research and concern. So I just want to acknowledge that, and we're hopeful to get some insights here tonight from what was done.
Yeah, just for the board, I mean, whenever we work with residents, sometimes we work and resolve matters. Ms. Guelman and I were involved, and I just wanted to bring it to the board. So whether we take action, no action, we listen to the review or study, you know, we'll just, like we all do, just listen to the topics and see which direction we go. But I know for the residents up there, it's definitely a concern, quality of life, and about the speed. So looking forward to the presentation. Thank you.
So Mr. Hardiman, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I don't have a presentation so much. It's just I've just come in to kind of talk about the issues that we've seen out there and what we've done to mitigate those.
Yep.
So back in 2021, a resident approached us about concerns with speeding on North Billerica Road, mainly in the area of Rogers Street. It's a straight section of road, and as we've gone out there and we've done some radar studies, it is an area where speed is in excess of the speed limit, which is 30 miles an hour. We've seen speeds, in excess of 40 miles an hour for the 85th percentile, which is the speed at which 85% of the vehicles travel at or below. So there is some areas where speed is greater than it needs to be for safe travel. We've really crunched the numbers. We're seeing most of it occurs during the morning or evening commutes, which leads me to believe that it's travelers who make that commute every day. They know the road well, kind of know where they can exceed the speed. When the road starts to curve, they know that they have to slow down, and that's what our numbers are showing. We installed a guardrail up there actually today because there's an area where there's a steeper slope, to prevent vehicles from leaving the roadway and going down that slope and, causing more damage than simply hitting the guardrail. We've installed chevron signs to warn people that there's a curve coming up and things like that. We put signage up, but I will say one of the things that we've noticed at the start of COVID, because a lot of traffic studies were done, and those numbers were shared within the region, is that speed started to increase because there were less travelers on the road. Now that the travelers are back on the road, the behaviors haven't changed, and those speeds haven't decreased the way that they were pre-COVID. So I think a lot of the issues on North Billerica Road are behavior related and not road geometry problems. Because North Billerica Road doesn't have any anomalies in the geometry, unlike any other roads in town, that see the same traffic volumes and vehicle behaviors.
Okay. All right. When was your study done? How long ago?
The study was
It's like
done.
August of last year?
About 2 months, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So from August to October of
Yeah.
last year.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay. Board members have questions for Mr. Hardeman?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So the radar device was still up on that pole, correct? Or was there one or two devices that were placed out?
One device that the DPW placed out there, and we moved it every 7 days
Okay.
to different locations along that road.
Fair enough. And was that still capturing data up until recently, or was it taken down recently, or?
No, it was that 2-month stretch from August to October, August 5th to October 5th of 2021, and then we took it down. Right now, it's deployed on Low Street.
Okay.
We move it around, when we feel that there are issues, we want to monitor and see what the speeds are, so we can make assessments and improvements where we need to.
Fair enough. I was going to see if there was any data from after the fact or more recent, because I think many people have noticed that exact issue of during COVID, people were driving quite a bit faster.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there was any more up-to-date information.
We don't, but we can certainly program that to collect it, in the near future.
Thank you.
How about on this side of the table?
Yeah, I have a couple quick questions. Where was the guardrail installed relative to your radar locations?
Do you have
I have it.
the diagrams?
I'm looking at the spreadsheet, but yeah, the diagram.
So the guardrail was installed near the Bill Rickett Town line.
Okay,
Because that's where the road has the most severe curve. And then near the office park right there, the slope drops off.
Okay.
So we looked at that as it relates to Mass DOT's design standards.
so that would be, is it near this 444 North Billerica Road, which is showing a maximum speed of 78 miles per hour?
Yes,
That's and that's that curve?
right.
Yeah, okay. What's the shoulder like in that area?
The shoulder varies. At times, it slopes up from the roadway, other times it slopes down. But normally, it's from the fog line over, it's your normal 1 to 2 foot asphalt and then a natural shoulder.
Okay. So would you say it's narrower than some other roads that are traveled at that speed typically, or?
No?
Nope, it's standard?
Yeah.
Okay. I think some of the concerns we had were from pedestrians in that area, and as you know, that's one of my big things, the pedestrian safety.
Unfortunately, there are no pedestrian accommodations
Okay.
in that area.
I know.
And it's a winding road, which then limits your sight distances and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, the geometry's not great for that. Do you have any accident information from that area?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have any with me. I know we did look at that, and there were only a few accidents that we found over the last 4 years. I think the DOT portal has 3 years.
Okay, there's a couple of accidents there.
Yeah.
Okay. I share the concerns of the residents, and I think that your analysis is right, and I agree with your analysis vis-à-vis the geometry of the road isn't what's causing the speeds, it's driver behavior. And so maybe it's something that we need to ask law enforcement in town about for enforcement or something along those lines, because I think it's a concern. Are there any other recommendations you would make for this area, this section of road to reduce average speeds, because the speed limit's low enough?
Not from an engineering and road geometry standpoint. I don't feel that there are any improvements or modifications that could be made to the road that would make it safer.
So like a speed limit sign is not an engineering solution, that's an enforcement solution. So if somebody put like one of the, sometimes it's a radar sign that flashes the speed you're actually going.
Right.
Because I think it'd be kind of alarming if I'm driving 78 miles an hour and it's 30 mile an hour, so slow down.
The one thing I will say, and I know you've brought up to 78 miles an hour a couple times. When we take a look at this data, we leave those numbers in there, but what we find is oftentimes, and we've spoken to the police department about it, it could be an officer responding to a call.
That's a great point, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
So that is an anomaly, and that really should drop off, the consideration of, how you look at the roadway and that people are traveling that fast on the roadway.
It could be. It could be. We have lead foots in my family, so I wouldn't necessarily count out residents driving non-law enforcement speeds. But even the 85th percentile speeds, some of these are, close to 10 miles or 10 miles over the speed limit that's there at the 85th percentile. So it looks like there's some opportunity there for enforcement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Wellman hit on my questions. I've been kind of involved, and I thought I kind of knew the net what, at the bottom, at the end of the day, there's no recommendations, right, to lower the speed. I think that's exactly what the residents are driving at, and they know we, as the board, have that authority. A few years back at town meeting, we were given that authority not to go to the Commonwealth, but, Mr. Hardeman, at the end of the day, that's the recommendation, is to keep the speed limits as is, correct?
Correct, because I know when we did get that article passed at town meeting, we talked about doing an engineering study to show that the speed should be reduced. The study that we did didn't show that, speed was causing accidents out there, and therefore the road was unsafe and people should be driving slower. If anything, it shows that people can travel safely at higher speeds, but, they really need to slow down because of the curves.
And this is not a new request. If you recall, we've done this for Shawsheen, you name a street, we've done this, especially when we had the authority to potentially upper or lower the speed limits. What about Bill Ricker? I know, has Bill Ricker taken some action? I think that was probably one of the biggest talking points of the residents, say, wait a minute, Bill Ricker's taking some action, we're not taking action. Were you aware of any action that Bill Ricker took on their side?
Not on this road. I believe that discussion was about implementing that speed regulation. So with that speed regulation, you have the option to apply it townwide or citywide, or you can apply it on a road-by-road basis. Bill Rick is a municipality that has applied it on a road-by-road basis. So they've got a handful of streets in town that have that 25-mile-an-hour thickly settled zone. But High Street in Billerica, which becomes North Billerica Road in Tewksbury, they have not implemented it on that roadway. But they have joined with us to have that guardrail installed, so it extends into their community as well.
So I think to Ms. Wellman's point, the big thing, I'm sure I'll close the loop with the residents, is around enforcement. If they live there and they see cars whipping around, day after day, year over year, I think that was the concern. And so I know these studies kind of say we're at the where we should be, but I'm sure they see the cars that are whipping around and not necessarily the cars that might be doing a speed limit. So, okay. I think I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay. Mr. Kratman?
Yeah, I just have just a couple of things. So the residents' complaints, was it them getting in and out of their driveways? Was it any
Speed,
kind of
overall speed.
The overall speed, was there any, intersections that were, like I'm looking at French Street, things like that, is there any, concern of like them coming around that corner? I'm just trying to think of if there's any, as you mentioned, speeds have increased. During COVID, fatalities on the roadways have either tripled or quadrupled because of excessive speed on the highways. It just, people were driving, there was no one slowing them down, and you're driving at that speed and you crash, and fatalities happen. So I know that it's not a good thing to, it's great to be able to get someplace a little bit quicker, but you want to make sure you get there. So I didn't know if there was anything that, like, as simple as pavement markings, or anything that would say, residential areas in specific areas of people coming out of their driveways or blind turn. Is there any suggestions in any of the areas of concern, or is everything, straightaways I get, but is like when you're coming around some of these bends, is there any kind of suggestion of doing any kind of signage or anything?
So we did put up signs at the significant bend right at the town line. We put the chevron signs to warn motorists that the road is going to curve to the right as you're heading into Billerica and left as you head into Tewksbury. Thickly settled signs have been installed as well. But as far as intersections go, there haven't been any issues with the intersections out there. Sight distances are good. One of the comments that the resident brought up was about walking along the roadway and the lack of pedestrian accommodations, especially in the wintertime. People walk their dogs year-round, which is slightly different than someone who walks recreationally. They may just do it in the warmer months, when there's no snowbanks. But that was one of the concerns, was pedestrian
The
accommodations.
only thing I would suggest maybe we make a recommendation to the police would be I'm guessing there's kids that probably get off of buses in that area and get through there, and they probably have to get off the bus and walk along that route to get to wherever they need to get to in certain areas, if anybody's getting off those school buses. And that would be an area of concern if people are speeding through there, you know, kids getting off in the afternoon or kids getting on in the morning. You know, if we're going to go out there and put some enforcement, specifically when kids, you know, I understand, you know, people walk and people exercise, but that's probably the highest pedestrian traffic we're probably going to get along that road. So if they could have somebody go and just randomly check, saying we're going to do something when the kids are going to school, something like that, that would be something that I think would be helpful. And if the word got out that, you know, they were doing enforcement, maybe people would slow down a little bit. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Yeah, so I drive that road frequently. I know it's one of the arteries, if you will, I think that comes in off of Woburn Street, exit of 495. I suspect, and I don't know this for fact, but it's somewhat of a commuter roadway, and I suspect that plays into these concerns as well. So, you know, I don't know, Mr. Montori, if we've looked at, and Mr. Hardeman, I know you're involved with this as well, but, you know, the sidewalks are obviously, would be a lofty goal for that street, but certainly something to consider longer term. And then I know we have the presence of our police chief today, so he's hearing this conversation as well. And I don't know if there's been particular law enforcement, speed enforcement efforts on that street. Sounds like there has been, but we would obviously urge that continue, and hopefully, you know, we can help create a condition that's a little bit more tolerable. So, so I want to thank Mr. Kelly. You were a good advocate for the neighborhood, and you brought this to our attention. And I want to thank the town engineer for facilitating a study and bringing us that information. And perhaps with the help of our police department, we can keep focused on it. All right?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler.
Hardeman.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, I'd like to see if we can, in the next 15 minutes or so, address the topic of retail marijuana. I think the assistant town manager is here. As I think everyone at this table is aware, in the May annual town meeting, we passed a zoning bylaw change, comprehensive change. And the one area that the committee that recommended the change spoke to that we anticipated the need for further work was this particular topic. And intentionally, the subject was left off of the amendment that was adopted in May at the annual town meeting. Thank you. And that was done by design because of concern that we didn't have the left arm and the right arm working together. We needed to assess and incorporate any of the guidelines and requirements on the enforcement and licensing side as opposed to just the zoning aspects of it. With full knowledge, we intended to bring this back in October to town meeting and seek residents' approval to incorporate retail marijuana into the town's zoning bylaw and also general bylaws. So with that having been said, I know, Mr. Sadwick, you've done a lot of research at this point and put some stuff together for the board, so you want to walk us through that?
Sure.
And if I misspoke or missed
No, thank you for the introduction.
Speak
because
up.
You saved me a little time on that. So what I had just handed out to the board is a two-pager that I kind of prepared to kind of walk through tonight about how we got to the point of the previous submittal that I had made to the board regarding the bylaws. But currently, the zoning bylaw allows for cultivation, manufacturing, testing, and research in 4 different zoning districts. That was what was approved at the Maytown meeting. We left retail off the table. And we also allowed for medical marijuana treatment centers in the general business district, which is pretty much from 495 down to 623 Main Street, where the old Nissan dealership was. So from there, heading towards Lowell, that would be for medical treatment centers, marijuana treatment centers. The table that I have laid out there, because I wanted to try and explain this, how I came to the recommendation that I did, is really most communities are operating off of one of these three different types of models. Predominantly, it looks like number 3 is what they've been operating with, but you could go with a license only, zoning only, or a combination of the two. All three would have a host community agreement as part of retail sales. In Tewksbury, with our new zoning bylaw, all three would have to go through the planning board for site plan review. And then where it gets, you know, a little bit different is when we start talking about special permits. License only, we wouldn't go the special permit route. If it was either zoning or combined, we'd look at either the select board or the planning board serving as the special permit granting authority. And then obviously licensing all rests with the board here. So like I said, it looks like a number of communities are using this combined select board licensing special permit, with it being at the select board. I do think that Model 1, where it's a licensing only, could work, and that's what I was kind of proposing with my memo that I had sent to the board. And really, in doing that, we would treat it no differently than we've treated retail liquor sales in the past, where it was allowed by right through zoning, and then the select board would handle the licensing component to it. So that's what my proposal is. I'm showing you, though, that there are other ways of doing this. The bottom, as part of the recommendation, it would include 3 different zoning districts, one being the general business district, which I previously alluded to for the medical marijuana. The industrial 2 district, which is kind of a heavy industrial area, predominantly off of East Street at Lumber Lane and Industrial Avenue. And then the South Village Business District, there's a number of vacant parcels down in that neighborhood. So that's why I had proposed that for this process. As my memo points out, there'd be 3 different articles for town meeting. One would be to implement this general bylaw, which would put the licensing in place. There would need to be some minor changes to the zoning bylaw and the use table. And then passing the sales tax would have to be an additional article for town meeting. And in looking at this, I realized that I'm using a 1.5% number, but I was looking at some other information today from 2018, and it looks like we can go up to 3%. So I just wanted to alert you, I need to double check on that, because there has been legislation that's been kicked around right now about tightening up the host community agreements, and also I think there was some talk about the sales tax, but I just want to double check on that. I think going forward that town council should take a look at this, the police chief should take a look at it. I know that the Board of Health had expressed an interest in this also, and the planning board should take a look at it. So all of that should occur during the month of July. We have until the end of August for the warrant to close. So I'd be looking during the month of July to kind of hit all of those different boards and individuals, and then come back to the Board of Selectmen with something final in early August. On the second page, I kind of mentioned the communities that I had looked at, and then just some other quick notes about the host community agreement needs to be reasonably related to the costs resulting from the marijuana facility to the community. And again, in looking at the Cannabis Control Commission's regulations, that's about 152 pages long, but it talks about how those costs really need to be documented. So that's something we haven't experienced before in any type of agreements that we've had. Also, that Board of Health regulations could consider nuisance issues such as odor and noise and sanitation. The Select Board licensure regulations would be closely related to alcohol, which again is what I had presented in that memo. And then all funds have to go to the general fund as per a DLS bulletin that was put out in 2018. That's unlike what we did with the billboards, where we have the town has the ability to divert the funds to a separate special fund. Here, anything that comes in on marijuana would have to go to the general fund. And then just lastly, there was a court case, this Valley Green Grow versus the town of Charlton, and where the court had found that the general bylaw can regulate time, place, and manner of operations. However, if it was historically handled in a town through zoning, then it should be continued to be handled through zoning. So those are all of the different considerations that went into place to put this together. Like I said, I think that could still probably get some input from town council, police chief, planning board, and Board of Health, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, let me open it up to my colleagues for any questions first. Anyone? Mr. Kelly?
Sure, I don't think we can move quick enough. I mean, even talking like to Drake it, they're very similar. And the reason why I say that is they almost have the same make and model as far as 85% residential. You know, we need new revenue streams to go into the general fund. So, you know, I think we kind of missed our opportunity. However, it's still in front of us. But I also, you know, think there's some balance where, just like the billboards, with our rules and regulations and our zoning bylaws, you can only have 2 or 3 max. So I'd look for that same principles here. You know, we don't want 100 stores, but I think there's, you know, enough to have a few here. And again, we need new revenue streams. You know, it's legalized, so I don't think we can move fast enough, so. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
Yeah.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the limiting, to Mr. Kelly's point, what's the limiting factor on?
The number of establishments? Yeah.
Is it population?
That's, no, it's the number of liquor licenses that the community can issue. So it's 20% of total liquor licenses.
Okay.
For retail liquor sales, which I believe is for liquor stores.
Yeah.
And is it active licenses or authorized licenses? Because we
I
just
would-
had some that, right?
Right, I would have to double check the regulations and the legislation, but I think it's total,
Got it.
total number available.
Okay, because it's tied to your population. Okay. So that's interesting. So that would imply we could have something like
2 or 3.
2 or 3? I was thinking maybe 4. Okay. Mike, I have a question about 8.7.4, your application requirement, and I'd be interested to see how that kind of, when you run it through your colleagues and to the other boards, how that process will work out. This isn't as detailed as maybe I would like to see, because I think once you open up applications, it's going to be competitive, and this just says to process them in the order in which they're filed, but I don't know that you kind of want to have a deadline so you can assess them against each other.
Probably, yes.
I would think. So I would be interested in how that process evolves. Your recommendations for the districts are interesting. I don't know if I'm comfortable with the South Village Business District, but I'm open to my colleagues and to constituents for feedback on all these districts, and I hope I'll be hearing from folks and I'll be reaching out. I initially somewhat favor the combined option. That's my knee-jerk reaction, so I look forward to more information on that and input. And I'm a little more familiar with what Salem has done, and they're a city, and it's
That's
totally
great.
different. And so I'll be looking forward to more input from your learned colleagues and our fellow boards. But this is a very complete package of policies, and I know you've done a ton of work in this area, so I look forward to more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on this side of the table?
Yeah, I just,
Kratman?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with your three different types here, every one of them would have a site plan review, so that if something happened in a specific neighborhood, at least there'd be an open public meeting on something that would come through if they were trying to open on there'd either be a planning board, a selectman meeting, or something.
Correct.
Where each review would come in each community, wherever it may be. So that
Correct.
the residents could come and they could speak to anything of concerns. So that's good. I mean, we need to have residents' input wherever it may be. Now, when you were doing the research, I hear different, things of the revenues in some town were great, and I hear also that the revenues from these type of establishments weren't what they expected in some communities. Did you have any things of what?
Yeah, most of what I heard was on the positive side. I did not hear anyone say that it had come in less, but I guess, as Mr. Kelly had referenced, a revenue stream's a revenue stream, so it's something that we don't have today. It may not hit a projection that we were expecting, but it's still something more than what we have today.
No, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
with them diluting the area, if they have them in every city in town, I mean, once again, we have liquor stores in every city in town, and they still seem to be busy. So that's something, but I get the funding must go to, because of the Mass General Law, for the general fund, but once again, we're going to need more enforcement. When it comes to this, we're going to have people checking. One of the concerns I've always had is, the tobacco and things that happen in this community, the types of, the bongs, the pipes, the things. It doesn't seem to be anybody really overseeing some of these, pipe stores, smoke shops, things like that are going on, of what's going on. Someone goes to the Board of Health, someone goes to that. So just to have a clear sense of who can go in and out of these establishments, and what the fines, who's in charge of that? Is the Board of Health will do some analysis? Is the planning board, is it come back to the selectmen? And, and how much more enforcement will we need from police? How much more education will we need on this? So I know the general fund, but I'm sure some of the general funds will have to go to education and support for our, public officials to be able to support them to continue to oversee these things, so.
Yep.
Right. I mean, it's going to go to planning, it's going to go to town meeting anyway, so I'm sure we'll be discussing all these as it goes through, but I just want to make the residents understand that this isn't a done deal. They have to come and be heard again. So, thank you.
Sure. Mr. Mackey, you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be short. Most of the major points have been hit. Mr. Sadwick, when we were doing the zoning bylaw rewrite, this was an ask that was made of you, and it appears to be very thorough. I think, as my colleagues have pointed out, there are a few questions, but that's the beauty of the process. So I think we'll be getting lots of feedback over the next month or so as we tighten this up, but I appreciate all the work on this and the research for the other communities.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so you're not asking for any action tonight, but I do want to emphasize, and I know you've acknowledged it, that we do have a short fuse on this if we're going to present this in the fall town meeting. So I'd ask you to seek that input that you referenced from other bodies and officials in town. And specifically, I'd be interested, Mr. Sadwick, in any opinions that they have relative to the model to be used. I want to reserve judgment, at least for now. But if they have a view, I'd really appreciate knowing why they see the world that way. And then we can consider that when we ultimately decide which path we want to choose to follow. So this is very helpful, and I appreciate your getting us on the right track for the October town meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to, we have a series of show cause hearings. The first one pertains to AJ's Beer, Wine, and Convenience. So if there are parties present, I'd ask them to come forward and sit here. And I I know our police chief is here, and we'll let him take the podium.
Would you like me, sir?
Caught you already.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
members of the board, if I could, I'd like to just give a brief timeline.
Yep,
Kinda-
just 1 second, and
Yep, okay.
I'll come back to that, okay?
Okay.
So we have 4 hearings this evening, and they all pertain to similar allegations. And I'm going to try to be as efficient as I can. This is a formal hearing process. Obviously, the parties have rights here that have to be protected. We have some obligations that we have to maintain. I want to follow this in a formal context. I'd ask you each to direct your comments to the chairperson, that being me, and we will enlist comments and responses as necessary from other parties. We want to make sure that we follow a process. There are going to be 2 questions that I ask out of the gate of each of the 4 license holders, and that is if they are stipulating or agreeing to the violation. And if so, that will allow us to avoid taking any information on that history and the violation itself. And I'm also going to ask each of you if you agree to waive the reading of the show cause hearing notice. And if you do, we will dispense with that. If you prefer that I read it for the record, I will definitely do that. But this is a formal process, so we want to make sure that we touch all those bases. So first out of the gate, would you introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, my name is Vipin Madani. I'm the owner of AJ's Beer Wine Convenience located at 2316 Main Street.
Okay. Do you have any representatives or counsel tonight, sir? Okay. Do you agree that you want to dispense with waiving the hearing notice, or do you want me to
Yeah.
read it? You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my second question would be, do you agree with, are you in admitting to the violation that was alleged?
Yeah, no,
You
we
are.
made mistake.
Okay, all right. So with that, we're going to move to the so-called penalty phase, and that would lead us to, this board will take some commentary from the police chief, and we'll give Mr. Medhani an opportunity to respond, and then we will deliberate specifically on what the penalty should be, as opposed to anything else extrinsic to that, okay? So, Chief, welcome,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Would you
Chairman.
do us a favor and
Members of the board.
give us a little history?
So
Yep.
just a brief timeline for all of these. I want you to know this so that you have all of this information. On March 24th, letters were hand-delivered to all establishments indicating that we would be conducting underage drinking compliance checks. In that letter, it included a notification that they would get an invite for a virtual meeting with me to discuss those checks. We also posted this on social media. On March 31st, I hosted a virtual meeting about underage drinking compliance checks for all of our alcohol establishments. During that meeting, I advised them how important it was to work together on this issue. I fully explained to them that we would have a person between the ages of 18 and 20 who would go into their establishment and attempt to purchase alcohol. If they were asked for an ID, they would leave. If they were not asked for an ID, they would purchase the alcohol and bring it out to an awaiting officer. It was that simple, no tricks. On April 7th, compliance checks were conducted on 10 establishments. 4 were not in compliance that are before us tonight, who sold alcohol to a person under 21 years of age without asking for identification. It's important to note, though, we conducted compliance checks on various establishments on April 7th, April 13th, and April 21st. On April 13th, all who had previous violations were in compliance. On April 21st, all with previous violations were in compliance except for one who incurred a second violation. And that's where we are today.
And the second violation pertains to which?
So that would have been Main Street Liquors. They had a violation on April 7th and then on the 21st.
Thank you. Okay. So Chief, you know a little bit about the history. You obviously have given us a little bit of information about the specific violation. Do you have, from your experience, do you have a recommendation you want this board to consider?
Yeah, I do. I think that the board should remain consistent with what has been treated in the past for first and second violations.
Okay.
So,
All right. So for members of the board, you all should have received, and let me just get to that information. You should have received some history of what the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, have previously meted out with respect to first offenses. You have the policy that has long been in existence here in the town. First offenses range from a warning to 7-day license suspension. Second offenses, 7 days to 14-day suspension. And you have any others that are in excess of that. So you should have, hopefully in advance, had a feel for what the town's history has been from this board's action and what the parameters would be. So in light of that, sir, do you have any comments or any information that you want to share with us around the penalty aspect before we deliberate and decide?
Only I would say definitely one of my employee made the error. We are going to strengthen the training, constant communication. I'm also looking into buying the electronic ID check reader, so there is no confusion about it. It costs a little bit money, but I will buy it. So I'm going to do everything possible so we don't have to come back again and again. We are sorry for it.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Okay, let me turn to my colleagues and ask if there's any questions first out of the gate that they want to ask of either Mr. Madhani or the chief.
I just have a simple question. Yes, Mr. Chairman. The only question I have is, since this violation has taken place, I know you said it was a mistake. Have you added additional signage to make people aware coming in? Have you made any improvements since this violation to do it? I know you're talking about doing the thing, but is there anything else that
No,
you've
we
done?
definitely, with my 2 employees, we did training. We also did our own check to make sure it's happening. I'm also checking my video camera. I'm not at the store all the time, but I have the continuous 24-hour tape, so I'm periodically checking, especially Friday night and Saturday nights.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Wellman?
Thank you. Did you attend the virtual training that the chief offered?
No, I did not attend. That was my mistake.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kelly?
No, I just-
Question?
I've been through this before with the board, so I'll just, because you can do all the training, you can have all the tools, like the card reader, but at the end of the day, it's the employee's responsibility, ultimately your responsibility for that employee to ask for the card, the ID. So, just unfortunate, it's unfortunate, and we have to, take action tonight, so I have no further comment.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I have one more follow-up.
Ms. Wellman?
For the chief. Does this business have any violations in the last 36 months?
not that I'm aware of, nothing that I saw that the town manager had given me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're at a point where the board can deliberate and determine what penalty it deems appropriate for this particular first offense that occurred on April 7. So I'll open it up for comments or motions, proposals.
I know previously we did 1 day, we did vary because we did, we varied, but essentially it was 1 day and we had this concept of 2 days abatement. So if you suspend it for one day, keep me honest here, Mr. Johnson, may have not been on the board, but if we go with that recommendation, that means they have to shut down for one day, and the 2 days of abatement would be if they have an infraction in the next 12 months and they're found guilty, that's essentially, quote unquote, their second offense. Is that, and I know we have town council here as well.
Yeah, I think you have it mostly accurate. My recollection is I think it was a 3-day suspension, but 2 days held in abeyance.
Okay.
So 1 day was served and the other 2 were held in abeyance, but that was not on all of them. That was on.
I know it varied, but that was the majority of the first offenses, yeah. We had some, yeah.
Okay.
And I know, I'm sorry, just one further comment too, is previously, and that's all I'm going on, because this is my second time,
Sure.
you know, with this, with hearings, is we kind of spread the dates. I didn't like the way we did it in retrospect. We were kind of all over the place, setting dates, trying to be accommodative, so my only ask of this board would be whatever we do, it's consistent with particular dates, because it was a little bit confusing of, we set up specific dates for some, you know, the violators, so that would be my only ask of the board, that we'd be consistent.
Yep. And what I would just advise my colleagues with respect to that is, before the meeting this evening, I did confer with town council. It's my understanding that there's a 5-day appeal period, so it would be probably in everyone's interest to, if we elect to suspend any license for any period of time, to make that effective after a 5-day appeal period, so that we're not in conflict and creating more issues from a legal perspective. So I just ask you all to keep that in mind. I will just offer this comment, because it hasn't been said yet, and I think I won't repeat it again and again and again, but, you know, it's when we have people before us who come in here to request a liquor license to sell alcohol, it is very common that one or more of the members of the select board impress upon the applicant the need to be very careful in this area in executing their responsibilities. So it's not, you know, a small thing that we have to hear 4 hearings this evening for violations that, quite frankly, I can say this, at least for me personally, that presumably could have been avoided. The lion's share of customers that come into your establishments, obviously if you are checking age requirements, you're doing the right thing. And I'm not naive enough to know that mistakes don't happen, they do. And we need to consider that. But this is a serious issue. We've had issues in the past with youth having problems in our community that we've had concerns about. And it's something that this board, I know, and I personally can attest to, take very, very seriously. So I respect the fact, sir, that you admitted the responsibility. I respect the fact that you have indicated that you're going to take steps to try to avoid that moving forward. And in that context, I certainly will consider, you know, that sentiment. But it is concerning that we even have to be here at all. And I just want to make sure that you understand that, because
No, I fully understand that.
it's a very
And
serious
I'm
thing.
running business for 4 years,
Yeah.
and we do check ID. It's not that we don't check, it's just coincidence. It happened, but in last 4 years, we want to be responsible as much we can, and I don't think it will happen again, for sure.
Terrific. All right. So, colleagues, I need your opinion or motion on what you feel is an appropriate response.
I would,
Mr. Kelly, you want to offer a motion?
sure, if there's no other dialogue, I would offer a motion that we suspend the license for 1 day and have the same 2-day abatement for that calendar year. So 1 day suspension, 2 days in abatement, time served, 30 days from today. Because I understand the process too, they can appeal and go to the ABCC, so I want to be, I recognize that fact.
Friendly amendment?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Kelly, but with the language that we've used before, just to substitute, suspend the license for 3 days with 1 day to be served within 30 days, and then 2 days held in abatement,
Thank you.
abeyance, in case there's a second offense within 2 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And what's 30 days from today?
No, I remember phone.
That bring us to,
Within, I'm thinking just within, I don't know. Do we need to set a specific date right now?
I would recommend that we
Okay.
set a firm date, yeah?
Okay.
And again, whether it's 30 days or 45 days, I just want to make it consistent, that's all.
So these dates from 2017, June 14th was a Wednesday,
28th.
August 12th was a
7/28.
Saturday.
What day of the week?
Thursday.
Looks like Thursday, the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. Montori. Okay, so Mr. Kelly, is that consistent with your motion? Is a 3-day suspension as mentioned by Ms. Wellman? 1 day to be served on Thursday, July 28th, and 2 days to be held in abatement for a period of 12 months?
Yeah, did you have 24 months? Ms. Wellman?
24 months.
24 months?
I would accept that as a motion, as amended, yes. Thank you.
All right.
Second.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
You're seconding that? Okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion, concern about the motion made and the second? If not, I will ask for all those in favor of the motion as made to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair will vote in the affirmative as well. Okay? So, sir, you appreciate you'll have to work with the town manager's office or town council. My recollection is there has to be a physical handing of the license. Do I have that right, Mr. Montori?
Correct.
So you'll have to make arrangements in advance of the 28th of July to effectuate that suspension for 1 day. And obviously, in light of the comments that I mentioned a few minutes ago about the seriousness of these offenses, there's 2 days that are being held back by this board in recognition of the fact that you're not, I presume, not contesting this particular violation. But if there's another instance and we have to talk again, those 2 days would come into play.
No, understood.
Okay? All right.
And there'd be further disciplinary action,
Yeah.
another call, okay.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay.
Okay.
I'll close this public hearing and we'll go to the next one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. The next one here, show cause hearing, 7:05 PM. This is Oakdale One Stop Liquors. So I see counsel, I believe.
Is it that obvious? Mr. Chairman, my name is Paul Alf, and I represent K&B Liquors. I'm an attorney from Westford, Mass. We agree to the waiver of the notice, and we also agree with the charge.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Counselor. Okay, so we'll go right to the penalty phase and ask the chief if he has any further information on this particular matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, again, this is a situation where we should do what we've done in the past and be consistent with first violations.
All right. Thank you, sir. Counsel, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to add a
relative
few
that?
things if I can, Mr. Chairman. K&B Liquors, this is Joe Silva, Mary Silver's wife, run a good business. They do their best to run a good business. As you know, it's been difficult to find good employees during the pandemic. It's not an excuse, just reporting what happened here. We had a new employee. We are aware of the compliance operation. The employees were informed of the compliance operation almost on a daily basis. The notice of the compliance operation was posted at the registers. They should have known what to do. In this particular case, this new employee who had started in February let us down. As a consequence, K&B Liquors let the community down, and they regret letting the community down. Going forward, they have implemented a new software program that requires identification be scanned at each transaction. As of May 18th, 100% of all transactions require a scan of each customer's ID. Our clients have received some pushback. Some customers have not been happy and have left. There's some old people, like my age and older, who have a problem with somebody scanning in their license. There is a way to deal with that for those old people who don't want to do that. But proper identification is required for every single transaction. It's like being in Fenway Park now. You can't get served without showing a license. So thank you very much for the opportunity to say these things.
Thank you. Good to hear that information. Colleagues, questions, concerns, comments? Ms. Wellman?
Did you attend the meeting that the chief held?
We were scheduled to do, but we had a family emergency that we did not.
Did you reach out to the chief to reschedule?
I sent it to the set board that the person was on whoever I was talking to, the email came from. I didn't talk to her saying I had missed it. She gave me bulletin of what was said in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So you made an
Just for
effort
the
to get the
record,
information.
I know, and I apologize, we're trying to record this, and there are residents at home watching, so I know that was said without the presence of a microphone. I don't know if you can paraphrase, counsel, what your client's
Can you
spouse-
paraphrase? I didn't hear it.
Yeah, so
Can you help us with that?
I guess, my understanding is that the person that my wife was communicating with was notified by, I believe, email, that we weren't going to be able to attend due to a family emergency. And my wife was provided with some topics that were, talked about during the virtual meeting.
All right, so there was some follow-up
Yes,
communication?
definitely.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Okay. Any other concerns, questions? If not, similar to the last hearing, I'll take any recommendations board members have.
To be consistent, I'll make the same recommendation, a one-day suspension with 2 days in advance to be served within, what do we do, 45 days?
I think 30.
30 days,
Pick a
30 days.
specific date, specific date.
Yeah, so, I would do it, 30 days from today, which would be, once again, the
July 28th.
July 28th.
Thursday.
July
Thursday.
28th.
Thursday?
Yep.
28th is a Friday. Oh, I'm sorry, I got the old calendar of the violations. I'm sorry, you're probably right. I was looking at one of the old violations, what days they took place. And so, okay, yeah, so the 28th is my recommendation.
With a probation date to, I think, the previous.
Yes, with the same conditions as we've done before.
Okay.
With the probation very period, if any second violation.
24 months.
Those things go in effect as well.
I would second that motion.
You have a second, Mr. Kelly? Okay, any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair will vote in the affirmative as well, making that 5-0. Okay, so I know you know, Counselor, and as I said a few moments ago, there's a process to communicate and hold the license at Town Hall. So we'd ask that you take those steps in advance of that date.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope we're not back.
We agree. Thank
We're
you.
all agreed.
Okay, we have a show cause hearing scheduled for 7:10 PM. pertaining to Lincoln Liquors. It's Mall Liquors Incorporated doing business as Lincoln Liquors, 10 Main Street in Tewksbury. If you, gentlemen, good evening. If you could introduce yourselves for the record.
Yes, I am Victor Andrade. I'm the Director of Operations for Lincoln Liquors for 15 years.
Okay.
I am Alex Bueller. I am the manager of Lincoln Liquors.
Manager? Okay, thank you. All right. So you've heard now two of these. Let me just, for the record, are you in agreement to waive the reading of the hearing notice?
Yep.
You've received it by certified
Yes.
mail?
Yes.
Okay, and are you in agreement with the violation that was alleged?
Yes.
You are. Okay, so you're admitting the violation?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we will go again to the penalty portion of the proceeding, and again, I'll ask our police chief if he has comments to offer on this particular violation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I recommend that we stay consistent with a first violation like we've done previously.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll ask you, gentlemen, do you have any comments you want to offer in response to that for us to consider?
The only comments we do a lot with the registers that show IDs. We do tip certifications online. We used to do, which is my favorite, we used to do the Mass Pack, which it's a group that gets all together with all the employees. We can't do that, of course, with COVID. So we do a lot of that. And we also have in the manual, we also have them signing to card everyone. If they don't card, they automatically they get let go of the company, just to protect everyone in the company as well. The employee was new; he was about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks in.
And that was, but we really take pride in what we do. 15 years. I'm on top of all the managers, and we also have like an accident report. If somebody comes in smelling liquor or so forth, we write that day, we write who it was, and we have just a little bit of information who we take everyday precaution on that. You know, if they're sitting out in the parking lot, come in, we try to not to sell to that person that came in with people in the car, so they're very observant on that. And I can show you the report that we had one the other day. The cashiers, they do it. What is it, page 24? Pull it up. These are all incidents that happen, so like, we will, so we have a form like this, and it shows you how they refused the sale, and they'll say the two girls didn't have an ID. So we go, and this one again shows again that they, the same thing. They refused the sale because, they would smell like liquor, or so we do that in all of our locations.
Yeah.
We have 6. So.
Okay. You have 6 locations?
6 locations.
Okay.
Yeah, we have Tewksbury. We just bought a few years back from Stadium. Yeah, so we bought that one. We have Bedford, we have Chelmsford, Mr. Harrington's old one. We have Framingham, we have Holliston, and we have Tewksbury.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there anything you learned from, this is the second time this evening we've heard we had a new employee.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
what's the takeaway in terms of training that might potentially be applicable here?
Absolutely, just keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
Not leave them unattended at all. We literally looked away for 1 second is what happened. Because he was still new enough that we were constantly up there with him. It just happened to be that one person.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So again, I'm not going to be repetitive. I think you heard my comments. We take this very seriously. We've had issues in the past. We do our best to be good partners with all the businesses in town, not just those who sell alcohol. And we ask, of course, you have a special responsibility because you hold a license, and we have to take good care of the young people in our community. So we take that very, very seriously. Any questions, comments, concerns by my colleagues?
Mr. Chair, I have a question toward the police chief. I know you said that you did different compliance checks, and one of the businesses twice had sold.
That's the next one.
That's the next one? Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make aware that we have the right business.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Wellman?
My standard question, did you attend the police chief's training?
Did not.
Okay.
But we do our own in-house training. We do tip certify all of our employees.
So far, nobody
Yeah.
everybody who's here tonight didn't attend that
I
training.
didn't hear about it. I didn't hear about it.
Unfortunately, it just, yeah.
Have you made any changes to your operation since this incident, like the predecessor did with their card scanner? Or do you have any intention of purchasing a card scanner for your operation?
We don't use them because we usually have the physical ID.
Yeah.
That's what we've been using, or it tells you at the register. But
Have you made any other changes to your operation since that date?
None.
Would you make any other changes to your
If I
operation?
had to, yes, absolutely. To make it, if I have to get a scanner, which we could, yeah, absolutely.
Well, have you considered posting
Oh, there's
more
sign.
signage?
Oh, we
You know, that everybody
we
scans,
have signs up all over
everybody,
we have
all
signs up all
ages.
over the place.
Do you card every single customer or just those you think are under
Our
21?
policy is we card
Every
Yes.
single person?
We have over 35.
30, yeah. If there's any sort of question at all, I've told all
Over
my employees.
35? What
Even
did you?
older than 35.
Yeah, everybody.
I
Yeah,
told,
we card everybody.
yeah, I told my
Like I said,
employees
the old
just to go for
customers don't
everybody.
like it either.
Okay,
The
thank
older
you.
customers don't like it either. Everyday customers, they don't like it.
I love it when I get carded.
I do too.
Every single time.
I'm 52,
really happy about
I
that.
love it.
You must be in the younger generation.
I
No.
don't get carded anymore.
Thank you very much.
I was holding my comment, but I guess I'll say, we can't, I know it sounds like we can't blame the new guy, you know what I mean? That's on you, and that's on you guys, so I hope, I just want to make that clear, you know what I mean? So if there's another offense, so, people make mistakes, but ultimately, whether you're the license holder, so you're responsible and accountable, so I think you guys understand that, but I just, it's two in a row, the new guy, it's not going to fly, you're going to be on notice, so hope that's clear. Yeah.
Good point, Mr. Kelly.
Absolutely.
Okay, we don't need to belabor the point. I think my colleagues have made their message clear. I will entertain any motions for any kind of action that the board wants to take.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to suspend the license for 3 days, 1 day to be served on Thursday, July 28th, with 2 days in abeyance for 1 year within 24 months. If there's a violation, those 2 days get tacked on.
Second.
Okay, so same motion, motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair will vote in the affirmative as well. Okay,
Thank you,
gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay, we have one last hearing notice here for a show cause hearing, and that is pertaining to AHPP LLC doing business as Main Street Liquors. Thank you and good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Would you just introduce yourself for the record, please?
Pratik Patel, co-owner, manager of Main Street Liquors, AHPP LLC.
Thank you. Okay, you don't have counsel or any representation this evening?
No.
Okay, thank you. And are you in agreement to waive the reading of the notice?
Yes.
Thank you. And do you have an opinion around the violation? Are you in agreement with the violation?
Yes, supposedly the second one, the employee was supposed to be here to at least have some statements, but he just texted me that he forgot. But if he texted me and he forgot, that means he didn't want to be here.
Okay. All right. So there's two violations.
Two violations,
yeah.
which is
Yep, 4-7
absolutely
and
not
4-21.
no excuse.
Yep, okay. And I think, okay, they're both noted on the hearing notice as well. All right, so let me ask again the police chief to offer his comments on a recommended penalty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I recommend that you treat this first offense like you have these other ones, and be consistent as how we've handled them in the past, but also looking at the second offense now as if there was those days held, and now there's action that needs to be taken on a second offense.
Okay.
So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. So as I have with others, sir, I want to give you an opportunity just to respond to that. So do you have any
I
feedback?
totally understand. So going forward, the policy now is basically, if somebody looks under 35, if you don't have an ID, we do not serve. It's that simple. We need to be diligent about it. They're good employees, made mistakes. I actually attended the chief meeting. I actually took a picture of the chief and sent it to all my partners and employees. I'm like, they're coming for you. Just be aware. They're coming. Still, they made mistakes, but I own it, we own it as owners, and we accept, whatever penalty we get.
Okay. Thank you for that. Members of the board? Any questions of this gentleman?
I was just going to, I'm sorry, Ms.
Go ahead.
Wellman. Was it the same, not that it makes a bit of difference, but I got to ask the question, was it the same clerk?
No.
Okay. Ms. Wellman, you had a comment?
Yes, I have. Have you made any changes to your operations since either of these violations?
No, as we said, so we're potentially looking into like ID scanning machines, but bottom line is, somebody walks in the door, just ask for an ID. It's really that simple, and I don't know what happens. Do they forget? I've been in the business for almost 15, 17 years. As soon as even if somebody looks 35, ask, how old are you? Just ask, and then ask for an ID if you have, doubts. It starts with that. So two things, as I said, we're looking, no ID, no serving, it's almost like a bar policy. You can't walk into a bar if you don't have an ID. And then looking into potentially ID scanning machine. The only issues, we've had those in the past, but sometimes what happens is they expire and they don't work. So we're looking into a solution that's inexpensive, but still, we can.
You can keep it updated
Yeah.
and, the
Exactly.
software, sorry. Yeah, I'm just wanted to know if you had made any changes in light of those two things. It sounds like you're thinking of them.
So the policy is already in place, no ID, but the machine, we're still looking into it. But we can, if the police can recommend something for us, we're willing to go for that one as well.
They were recommended, it's called,
Yeah.
take their ID, and it's called carding, so.
Exactly.
I'm not trying, but yeah,
No,
I mean,
I know,
that's, you can have all the technology in the world, at the end of the day, right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Question for council.
What's your question?
So are we looking for two different penalty phases here? I'm looking at our previous decisions vis-à-vis, there was an example from June 16th and April 8th, both of 2017, for Crystal's General Store, and there were two different penalties. So I just wanted to understand what we need to do here procedurally.
So, Counselor, good evening.
Good evening. And yes, based on the chief's recommendation and my review of the policy from 1988 that the board has, that yes, this would be two separate violations for the board to consider.
Okay. All right, and just to be clear, that policy would put us in a second violation bucket, which would be a 7 to 14-day suspension.
Right, so previously, to your point, Mr. Chairman, Crystal General Store had been suspended for 3 days with 1 day to be served and 2 days held in abeyance for their first offense. And then on the second offense, they were suspended for 7 days with 2 days, together with the 2 days suspended but held in abeyance. So I'm trying to make sure that are we doing two motions, one motion, that sort of thing?
And they're just guidelines, I mean, just for the board, right, the guidelines to consider, so.
Agreed. There also, town bylaw spells out those windows as well, so.
For 3 years, for 36 months, correct, yeah.
Yeah, so.
This,
So you could treat, we can offer it in a combined motion. It's two separate offenses, but you can offer penalty for each one separately, or we can take them one at a time.
I mean, this one's a tough one for me. I mean, literally what, within 3 weeks, the first one's already tough as it is, we have to deal with it. Now, this one's a little bit obviously tougher, different circumstances, so, I mean. I'd make a motion to, and again, I'm not probably following the guidelines, but I'd make a motion, we just did 1 day and 2 days of, I'd make a motion to suspend a license for 3 days, no abatement.
And
I mean,
Second for discussion.
Yeah, please.
So, yes, 3 days, a suspension for 3 days. The 2 days that would be held in abeyance that we've discussed
Sorry.
previously, I would add to, for the second violation, suspend the license for 7 days. So that would be a total of 9 days of suspension of the license to be conserved on consecutive days commencing on Thursday, July 28th.
For 9 consecutive days.
Well, let me rephrase that.
Yeah, I think there would be a second motion. So, first motion for...
Well, there would be 1 day that would be held, that would be July 28th. The 2 days that would be held in abatement would be held with 7 days altogether. So that would be 9 days for the second offense. Should it be 2 motions?
It may be easier to do it in the form of 2 motions.
So then I second Mr. Kelly's motion.
So on the first offense, you're recommending, sir, just could you repeat your motion?
Well, if we're going to play it that way, then I would
On
go...
the first offense.
First, I'd play it just like we've been consistent all this evening, and then we'll have the discussion for what's next. So,
Yep.
3-day suspension, 2 days served in abatement, and starting on July 28th with a 2-year probation period,
Okay.
24 months.
All right. Is there further discussion on that motion? If not, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion made in a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair will vote in affirmative as well. All right, so that's the first offense. Now we have discussion of a second offense. And Ms. Wellman, you were going down a pathway, so do you want to offer a motion relative to that offense?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to suspend the license for 7 days, together with the 2 days held in abeyance, to run concurrently for a total of 9 days suspension, commencing, I'm not particular on the day, if we want to do it on that day or in contiguous for the next 9 days after July 29th and the next 9 days, or if you want to do it in a separate month.
It's up to you. I just ask you to be specific with the date.
Then I'll say commencing July 29th.
7/29. Okay, is there discussion on the motion?
Second.
We have a second on the motion. Okay, second offense, so that would be the 7 days plus the 2 that were held in abeyance for a period of 9 days commencing on July 29. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll vote in the affirmative as well. Okay. So, sir, obviously, 2 offenses, right? Very difficult situation, and we'd urge you to take those steps that you need to avoid that in the future. And I'd ask you to reach out to town manager's office to work with them on presenting your license in advance of the 28th of July so that you can meet those obligations, and the town will hold the license for that period. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Now we're going to shift gears. I want to thank the police chief, too, for his presence this evening, and town council. for those hearings. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one quick question?
Certainly.
In previous decisions that were drawn up and sent to the establishments, I signed for the board. Continue that practice for these decisions?
Would you like, why don't we take a vote to authorize the town manager to execute?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, so we'll shift gears, and we're going to welcome someone from, I have to find my hearing notice, one second here. All right, so this is a liquor transfer application, so I'm going to ask if someone is present from Tran Family Business or, Tran Family Business LLC to come forward. I will read the hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 138, on Tuesday, June 28 at 7 p.m. on the request of Dow Tran, manager of Tran Family Business LLC at 910 Andover Street, Tewksbury, Massachusetts, to transfer an all-alcoholic beverages license to Tran Family Business LLC, doing business as My Way Kitchen? My Way Kitchen, to operate the license on said premises described as a Chinese and Vietnamese cuisine restaurant having 2,325 square feet on the ground floor, one entrance and two exits, separate kitchen, dining room, bar, and counter seating. The hearing will take place in this room, Selectmen's Meeting Room, Town Hall, 1009 Main Street. Input is welcome from the public. So we'll offer an opportunity for any residents here to offer comment before we finish our hearing this evening. Let me ask first and foremost if you could introduce yourself as counsel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Attorney Russell Chin Law Firm, for the record. And I am joined tonight by Mr. Dow Tran.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. We're here, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, to seek approval of the transfer of a liquor license, and we are also applying for a CV license for this ongoing restaurant.
Okay, all right. So can you explain a little bit? It's being transferred from Tran Family Business to a DBA with the same name, right? Do I have that correct?
Yes, it's currently doing business as Chopsticks, is my understanding.
Okay.
And Dow Tran has established a new LLC called the Tran Family Business, and he intends to operate as the My Way Kitchen.
Okay. So in effect, if customers go in there, it's essentially the same management, just a different ownership structure? Do I have that right?
Yes, it'll be a different ownership. He will be the manager. He may expand the menu a little bit, so there may be a slight variety there, but otherwise it's going to be very much the same.
Okay. All right. All right, so there's a very extensive packet of material here for my colleagues. I know you probably all reviewed this and saw that the various town departments offered their feedback and input, and I think there was one inspection that was still out there, if I can find the right page. I think it may have been from the fire department, if I remember right. You got that, Mr. Mackey? Thank you.
Those are all covered.
Yep.
And then building and health are covered as well.
Okay, so it seems like all the boxes have been checked. So let me open this up to my colleagues first. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, so, sorry,
Mackey.
clarification on that, the transfer. So you are not currently the owner?
Currently, it's still owned by a different owner, but we're purchasing the business from them, so we want to transfer their liquor license to us.
Understood, okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions? Ms. Wellman?
Yes.
Sorry?
Nope, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me your experience in the restaurant industry and your plan for serving alcohol?
I have worked as a server for, I think, about 4 to 5 years now, so I have experience with like checking ID, with customer who are ordering alcohol, but like not like management level.
Do you plan to put together a training package for your staff?
Yes,
Do you already
for the
have
staff, I would have them take the Serve Safe, that the alcohol certificate training. That
certification?
and yeah, the Serve Safe, the website.
Yeah. Serve Safe and tips are
Yes.
different, yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Johnson, are you planning to retain your current employees?
Yes, and we're gonna hire more employees too in the future.
Very good. And I'm going to state the obvious, because I'm good at obvious. You saw what transpired tonight within our town. So hopefully that resonates with you as a new manager of this. So I stated the obvious. Thank you.
Just additionally, for the record, Mr. Train is a United States citizen, and he is familiar with the rules and regulations promulgated by the ABCC, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as well as your town regulations.
Okay. So my question was just, I know you're taking this on. Have you worked there in the past?
Not at that restaurant.
Okay.
But I came in to like take a look before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and try
Where
to
was
learn.
your other experience? What other?
I worked at 2 other restaurants in Boston before this. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and, Mr. Kelly took the words out of my mouth, right? It's no irony here that we were dealing with 4 violations for liquor service this evening, and, certainly we want to welcome you to the community.
Yes.
But we ask you to really, pay close attention to those responsibilities, because we want to have a great, positive relationship with every business in town. It's disappointing and discouraging and concerning, quite frankly, when we have to have conversations like we just did.
Yeah.
And we have an expectation that you'll do everything in your power to make sure you stay within the legal requirements that are attendant with that privilege, because it is a privilege, really. So I thank you. Mr. Crabman, did you have a comment?
Yes, I had a quick question. Do you plan on rebranding the restaurant, do new signage, new menus, new information to let people know that it's a different menu, or you're adding to it?
Yeah, the sign, we will rebrand it to a new name, and then the menu pretty much is the same, but we just add some Vietnamese item. But the Chinese item, the food, still gonna be the same.
Okay. No, I welcome you to the community. We're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
But as everyone stated, we take this very serious. Police chief will be out in enforcement. He's there to help you, to make sure everything runs well. So I would take his guidance when he has recommendations, or we have those videos or those things. It's going to happen every year.
Yes.
So, it shouldn't be anybody's surprise. So, take advantage of the training, make sure you work with your employees, and, we welcome you to the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. As I said at the outset of the hearing, this is a public hearing, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask if anyone here in the room has any comments specific to this matter, and give them an opportunity to speak now. I don't see anybody rising, so I will then turn back to my colleagues and ask if there's any motions for us to consider.
I'd make a motion to approve liquor transfer for My Week Kitchen, 910 Andover Street.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and a second on the transfer request. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'll join the majority and make that unanimous. So,
Congratulations.
good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a procedural question about the notice, the delivery of notice documentation? My paralegal wanted me to make sure I asked the question about the certifieds and the copies. Do I drop them off somewhere in the building?
You could probably give them right to the town manager, right there.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you very much. I will do that on the way out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's ask if there are any residents that have any other issues that they want to bring to the board's attention this evening. I don't see anyone. Oh, I'm sorry. Please sit. You can sit there, that's fine. That's fine.
My name's Brad Tosco. I'm a resident at 50 Cardigan Road. I just purchased my house, but I lived here my whole childhood.
Okay. Well, welcome to home ownership.
Yeah, I know, it's fun. I actually had to come from painting. Had to get that out of my fingers. But no, I just wanted to say that I support for the new zoning bylaw changes and the retail marijuana. I think it's a positive to the town, not only through the new revenue streams, but working with a business that has the community in mind and that has the community programs for education and to really try and help stifle the drug abuse and any of that and have it be legal and all that. Okay. I think the zoning in the South District and the Central District, I think getting some of those vacant buildings out of there make the town a little more pleasant when you're driving all the way through it and not have all the businesses in one area. Just a real dead side, but I just wanted to say that I really support it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You understand it's going to be a process over the next few months, and it will lead up to the town meeting in October.
In October, yeah.
So I'd encourage you to follow that, and obviously, we're dependent on the attendees at town meeting to express their opinions and cast the vote. So you may want to continue to follow and participate in that
I'll
process.
have my friends and family along.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, anyone else? No? Okay. All right, we'll move to new business. That brings us to the flag policy review and possible adoption. Everyone's had the flag policy in their possession for some time. Town manager included it in the board meeting packet. Hopefully you all had a chance to review and consider. I think we had a discussion, I'm going to guess it was about a year ago, by my recollection, roughly.
COVID throws everything off.
Yeah,
Right.
it's COVID fog for sure, you're right. And I think at that time, we agreed as a body to hold it in abeyance while we considered it. And I don't think we ever came back to take any further action. So the need does exist to adopt a policy. I think everyone's paid attention to the news. There's been some recent court activity that has potential implications for all communities in Massachusetts relative to the use of public property and flagpoles on public property. So we would not be carrying out our fiduciary obligations as a board if we did not have a policy in place, which I believe is the situation as we sit here today. So let me just open it up for any discussion or questions. I think the draft speaks for itself. As I said, it's been in everyone's possession for quite some time. So I'll just stop there and we can take whatever action is deemed appropriate or discuss it a little further.
I'd make a motion to adopt the flag, Tewksbury flag policy, adopt the policy.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion made to adopt the policy as presented and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One vote in opposition, and I will vote in the affirmative. So that would be recorded as a 4-to-1 vote to adopt the policy. Okay, that brings us to the town manager portion of the meeting. Mr. Montori, do you have anything?
No, just as the board knows, we're closing the fiscal year this week, so we've been focused on that and starting a new fiscal year. So things are looking good as we end fiscal year 22 and make our way into fiscal year 23. So that's been the focus of the last few weeks and will be the focus of the next few weeks.
Okay. Excellent. No invoices. So we have minutes. The packet contained minutes from September 14, 2021. They've been reviewed by Mr. Mackey, who was clerk at the time. And I believe these may be the last minutes from his tenure as clerk. So can I ask for a motion on that, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the minutes from September 14th, 2021.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair will make that unanimous. And then by email, I think it was today, Mr. Kratman, our current clerk, circulated or through the town manager's office. There were minutes presented from June 7, 2022. They're not in the packet. We did all receive them. I don't know if you all had an opportunity to review. We can hold them until July, our next meeting, if that is the preference of the board, or we can take action. You prefer to wait?
I have not reviewed them.
Okay, so we'll hold those until July, all right?
Sure.
And we'll put those on the agenda. Mr. Montori, if you can help us make sure those are on the agenda. Okay. All right, that brings us to board member reports. Mr. Kratman, you want to lead us off?
Sure. The reuse committee met on 6/16. We had a very good conversation. We had a couple of residents that attended the meeting. We had numerous topics. We continue to look at options and have a continued dialogue about what's the best options for that. We have another meeting scheduled for 6:30, and we'll continue to move forward with that and come together and hopefully come up with some recommendations as we looked at some of the recommendations from the consultants that were coming through as well. LRTA, I had a meeting on 6/23. We had a reorganization. All the board members that were the existing committee members remained the same. But we went over our budget. Budget was approved, and we had some discussions. Some of the things that I had brought up before when I previously served on the LRTA, I brought them back to the board to discuss and see some options. One of the things I was hoping to do is a section of the bus route that really doesn't serve a lot of purpose in the community. When it goes around, the bus leaves Wilmington, goes through the community, goes up by down Livingston, through Tewksbury State Hospital, and then it continues by the senior center all the way down the rest of East Street, where it comes back to Main Street. That section of East Street really doesn't pick up anybody. We've looked at it. There's nobody that really gets on that bus. And I've made the recommendation that we should look at having it continue up Chandler Street to bring people to the library, and then take the right to come down Main Street to pick up some of the new businesses. There's a lot of new businesses, a lot of people coming through, and we're hoping to pick up, people, gas prices, the way it's going, to see if they can, look at the route. And I also made the recommendation that the route itself, which is one of the top 3 routes on the LRTA that's actually used, and when we look at the numbers, that's always up in the top numbers. When I looked at the what time it picks people up and to get people to Boston, like the train out of Wilmington Station leaves at 7:26, and the bus gets there at 7:38. So it doesn't really work with the commuter rail of what we're doing, but it also impacts the other bus routes. So we're looking at that to try to see if we can get an earlier route, to see if we get people going back and forth out of Boston, if we can get people off the roads. There's not a lot of parking at Wilmington Station. There's Bill Ricker Station is pretty packed. The Gallagher Station gets pretty packed. So if there was a way that we can get more people on the bus to try to get them in and out of Boston, we'd like to look at that and maybe offer an additional early morning bus, and then promote that through the community to say, we can get you there, get you a little bit quicker, and we probably can get funding out of Boston to, in the past, we've done a Sunday bus to try to offer to give additional services. That worked very well. We did that with a grant, and maybe if we did that, we could provide additional services. So that's all I have for the board meetings, but I did want to make other comments. This weekend, we have the July 4th celebration in the town. It's going to be held on July 3rd. All the activities begin at 8:30 in the morning We do everything like we've done in the past, Little Miss Tewksbury, bicycle decoration, all the things, all done by 100% volunteers. They're going to come down, they should all be applauded. We have the Rotary Club that's coming down to serve a continental breakfast. The Elks and Knights are going to come down, they're going to give away hot dogs, water, soda. The Patriotic Committee is going to give away ice cream. We'll have watermelon eating contests, pie eating contests, what everybody loves. Sack races and all that will continue. That'll go to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's all been posted out. The town posted it on the website as well. We'll take a break in the afternoon. We'll be back down there around 6 o'clock. We have a DJ coming down. We have a band that's hired. The DJ goes on at 6, the band comes on at 6:30. We'll rotate back and forth. I've met with the police, fire, all public safety officials to coordinate, get the signage, get that, everything out so the community knows. We're just hoping for good weather and hopefully we have a, great Independence Day celebration. So that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Kratman. Let me go to the other end of the table, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, just really quick. First off, I want to thank Mr. Kratman. I know you're doing a ton for the fireworks festivities on the 3rd, so thank you, Mr. Kratman, and to the volunteers. Just one item, it's kind of directed to Mr. Montori. We still have a situation down in South Tewksbury where there's an Andover parcel. We've been dealing with particular land use, but Mr. Montori, I just want to let you know the residents still feel, I know I'm working with you, you've been updating the board regularly, weekly during the updates, but I can tell you, the Tewksbury residents still feel like we're not doing enough. And I know sometimes it's tough because we don't have jurisdiction and sometimes we don't have the answers because a lot is dependent on Andover because obviously it's an Andover parcel. But I know you're going to try to have a meeting with Andover officials to set a date and hopefully get some residents in because they still have a lot of questions. And so I just want to bring it up. I know it's really important to the residents and they're still, very frustrated with the situation, but I know you're working on it. So I wanted to mention that to the board as well. So thank you for hopefully we can get a meeting sooner than later with the Andover officials and a lot of the residents down there. So that's all. Thank you.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I concur with everything you just said. I've spent a lot of time on the phone with the residents in that area as well. 2 quick things. We have, I'd ask that we can put on our next agenda appointments for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. We'll include the names in the packet. We have 2 new students that will be joining that committee. And our next meeting is July 7th, so next Thursday. We have been, last Thursday and then this coming Thursday, we were at the farmer's market with the Frontline Initiative. And so last week it was very, very popular. It was a great effort on the part of Mr. Hayes and Ms. Louder and the community and all the vendors that come in. So it was really fun to be there, and we'll be there again on Thursday. And then, as folks here know, but just to remind you, there's a tour of the new elementary school coming up on July 14th at 4 p.m. And the contractor specifically has asked for a definite head count. So if you can come, I would like to know, or you can let Mr. Montori know so that we can give the date and just commit to being there. Because they want to make sure, because they do quite a bit of site preparation for folks to be there. So that's the only request. So if you want to come, it would be great. It's coming along amazingly, and it's very impressive. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep, thank you for that. And I will ask Mr. Montori to help us with making sure that item gets on the agenda.
I just noted it.
Thank you for our next meeting. All right, I don't have any board report items at present. I will note it is the summer season, so our next board meeting is actually July 19, if I have my facts correct. So we will go a little ways here. And I know that we've talked about this in meetings past, but the warrant for the fall closes in August. I think it's late August. So tonight is a good example. We talked about the retail marijuana and the desire to make sure that we're prepared to put that on the warrant articles, or on the warrant rather, for the fall town meeting in October. If there are other items that we need to address, I just ask that we have those prepared to discuss in July, so we have at least a month to sort through the logistics that are necessary. I think there were a couple other items that we were talking about. So let's, we'll leave it at that for this evening. And I neglected to ask our colleague, Mr. Mackey, if he had a report. So
I wasn't going to let you off,
apologize.
off the hook, Mr. Chairman, don't worry.
Apologize.
So two quick updates. One, I wanted to echo Ms. Wellman's comment on the community market. I was actually able to make it out last Thursday, which was my first time this year, and kind of seeing the growth. I know coming out of COVID, there were some challenges, but seeing the growth, it was very impressive. And I want to see that continue and wish them continued success. The other item is, I've been working with the town manager and our IT director. We're in the process of working with Dragos, who is an operational technology industry leader in cybersecurity. And we're in the process of waiting for a statement of work for a number of services for a significant amount of money that they're going to be donating to the town. So as that matures, I will keep you all updated on that. But we're at the point now where we have draft approvals, and that should be moving through the process soon. So wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that we're doing that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
My apologies again.
Absolutely, all good.
Okay, so I want to thank my colleagues for their patience this evening while we work through those hearings, and I appreciate your approach to them. Very serious issues, and I think the board, and I hope in the eyes of the community, acquitted itself well. So thank you for that. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now adjourned at 8:16 p.m. Thank you and have a good night.